And Representative Bennett, would you like to move that House File 195 is recommended to be re-referred to the Taxes Committee?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I so moved.
Please begin your testimony.
All right. Chair Bliss and Lead Shang and members of the House Veterans and Military Affairs Division, thank you so much for giving a hearing for House 195 today. Appreciate it. I would like to explain the bill, but before I do, this explanation will be brief, but I just would like to honor our veterans because this bill greatly impacts them and the charter service organizations for veterans like American Legions and VFWs. But I want to say thank you to all the veterans in this room and those outside this room. You are amazing people. You're from every walk of life. You've worked hard your entire lives, and most of all, you sacrificed to serve our country and our state, and I thank you for that. And to honor you, I want to share just briefly, Mr. Chair, if I could, a veteran I met this summer in a little community called Bryceland, which is in my district, 97-year-old veteran named Bill Anderson. He served on the USS Yorktown way back in World War II. Still lives in a home on his own. He's a widower now. He's the person who found an error on his ballot, first person, and called the appropriate people. So he had the wherewithal to download his ballot, check it out, get familiar with it, notice the error, called it in. He's 97 years old, and he did all that. And, you know, what an amazing guy. And I drove over to Bryceland to meet him. And when I got there, he was picking apples from his apple tree so he could give me some apples. And when I left, he gave me some homemade applesauce that he had made. So veterans are amazing. Thank you. Thank you very much. So this bill exempts congressionally chartered veteran service organizations like American Legions and VFWs from paying property taxes on buildings that they own and operate. The Department of Veterans Affairs sends a list of eligible organizations to the Department of Revenue every year. Now, in 2017, the legislature, and I thank everyone who was here to support this, reduced property taxes for CVOs to 1%. And that was helpful. But despite that reduction in property taxes, Legions and VFWs are still struggling to keep their doors open, and especially after the pandemic. So I do have some testifiers here who can explain things a lot better than I can. So I would like, Mr. Chair, to open that up for them if we could.
Thank you, and please state your name before your testimony. Thank you.
Good morning, committee chairs and committee members. My name is Dr. Carl Moon, and I am the American Legion Department Commander for Minnesota. I'm also, as well as the chair for the Commander's Task Force this year. Last year in the House, Representative Weens introduced a very impressive bill with a bipartisan slate of 13 authors and received much support. And just a few days ago, we testified in support of this bill's Senate companion, SF 255, in the Senate to the Senate Tax Committee. Representative Bennett, we are so grateful that you have introduced HF 195, and it's an important bill, and we're counting on the Minnesota legislature for passage. I have in attendance with me today David Stalen, the VFW commander, and also Alan Gramstad, the adjutant of the Mora Legion Post 201. We'll go into more detail on their issues after I finish my presentation. First off, though, I want to say that we have representatives in the gallery from Arcade Phelan Post in St. Paul here, Post 577, a post which has struggled with its property taxes and has faced setbacks because of the conditions of the buildings. These were covered by both the Star Tribune and St. Paul Press, and they're at risk of losing their building. I also have representatives from the Anoka Post 102 And last year, the Anoka Post paid nearly $15,000 in property taxes. Nearby posts, Champlin and Ham Lake, have turned in their charters, and which has resulted in a lot of pressure on the Anoka Post, and because they're trying to provide financial support for the neighboring suburbs. Post 102's ability to serve these increasing needs is limited by their tax burden. Many of the 501c3 nonprofit organizations receive property tax exemptions after they qualify through their county assessors. Veteran service organizations often have other designations such as 501c4 and 501c19. What we're asking for is access to the same non-property tax exemptions provided to the 501c3s. Congressionally chartered veterans organizations have a federal requirement of reporting their volunteer and charitable efforts directly to Congress every year. And because of this accountability, it makes sense for them to have to pay no property taxes. There are a handful of states that do provide this benefit as a recognition of the good service that the veteran organizations do for their communities, and we'd like to see Minnesota be among them. A zero tax measure would clear up much of the confusion that county assessors have across our 87 counties. This confusion drives workload and inefficiencies that are inevitably covered by taxpayers. People make assumptions about our buildings. They are just bars, restaurants, or places to go gamble. That's not true. So much more happens in our buildings. We have post meetings where our membership decides which local organizations to donate these proceeds from their charitable gambling to. In this manner, we prop up small local nonprofits providing important community services, including youth sports, addressing food insecurities and homelessness, and funding public safety equipment for our cities, such as fire trucks. These are important gaps filled that the federal, state, and local governments cannot address. Our posts in Minnesota are increasingly diverse as veterans seek places where they can relax in camaraderie with their like-minded people with shared experiences. Veterans tend to be slow to trust other people, and that can lead to isolation. We need social communication as much as other people do, and perhaps more because many do not understand what some of us have been through in protecting our country and its freedoms. We also hold veteran suicide prevention trainings in conjunction with the VA partners at our post so that people can recognize the signs of suicidal ideation and know how to help someone. Our halls are places where people gather for birthday parties, celebrations of life, weddings. And in towns, small towns especially, our posts are the only option for such gatherings. The American Legion Department of Minnesota has a total of 531 posts, but more than half of these already do not have buildings. 260 of our posts do have buildings. Of those, several are struggling and are at risk of closing. The communities of Stillwater, Marshall, Northfield, Waite Park, Coon Rapids, and a number in the metro area have already had to sell their buildings to survive, and that's due to taxes. How many more communities will need to lose the gathering center for charity, fundraising activities before relief is provided? I want to thank you for allowing us to testify today, and thank you again, Representative Bennett, for bringing this up. Thank you. Now, I'll turn this over to, David, you want to come up?
Thank you. And please state your name for the record and start your testimony.
Good morning, Chairman Bliss, members of the committee. My name is David Stalen. I have the honor of currently serving as the state commander for the Department of Minnesota Veterans of Foreign Wars, and I represent 188 VFW posts across the state of Minnesota. We have approximately 30,000 veteran members and 14 or 15,000 auxiliary members. 107 of our 188 posts own real estate as their post home. As described, they use those for our meetings. They can meet with veterans who have the same experiences. They can get referrals for mental health. We do operate at most of our posts a club room for our members and their guests. We usually have a meeting hall. Most of in fact, I think all of our post homes have a meeting hall that our members use. We also make those available to a nonprofit and other groups in the community. Nonprofits generally is going to be, or charities is going to be free. We also use those as community centers. A lot of folks, they come to your VFW and your American Legion to have their wedding receptions because they can't necessarily afford to go to a hotel and pay the prices for the rooms and the conference rooms for those events. And so we're an important part of the community. I'm here to express my strong support for H.R. 195, authored by Representative Bennett. Thank you. The bill would provide much needed relief. Our posts are facing increased not only property taxes, but insurance, payroll, unemployment insurance, utilities, and maintenance. Many of our posts, both for the VFW and the Legion, are over 100 years old. Some of their buildings are nearly that old, if not that old, and we face a lot of expenses. I know the VFW, for example, last year, we reported volunteer hours over 142,000, and that's just those that were reported, and I think it's very much underreported. And the dollar value of those volunteer hours is, by VFW National Headquarters, is estimated to be worth $4.5 million. And those are volunteer hours that our members and our auxiliary members are donating in our communities. But our posts are struggling. My own post, Cottage Grove, Post 8752 in Cottage Grove, we own our building. We can pay our bills, but we don't have much money in the bank. And so if we have a HVAC unit go out, we end up going to our bank and having to borrow money to replace it. We do have charitable gambling, and we use those funds to donate to the community. In fact, Minnesota VFW Post donated $2.6 million to the community last year. Many of those gambling funds, though, can't be used for the post itself. Only a small percentage can without an exception from the Gambling Control Board. And so any kind of relief we can get, such as reducing the property tax to zero, would allow us to take care of ourselves, either to use that money for more of our charitable work or to help make improvements at some of our post homes. My own post, again, in Cottage Grove, we really need to replace our parking lot. And at this point, we can't even afford to resurface it and restripe it, let alone actually tear it out and replace it, which we really need. And so any relief we can get would really help. And we appreciate all the support for veterans. And this is one way that the members of the legislature and the people of Minnesota can thank veterans for their service, both while they served in the military as well as their post-military service to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stalen. And we have one more testifier. Is that correct?
Yes.
State your name and begin your testimony.
Good morning, Chair Bliss, distinguished members of the committee. My name is Alan Scramstead, and I'm the adjutant at Lee Goldsmith Post 201 in Mora. I have 3 members of our post here with me this morning, and we are here to support the Legion in its quest to get this bill passed. Our post is an original post organized in 1919 when the American Legion began. We have a storied history of supporting veterans and helping in our community. 3 years ago, while serving as the mayor of the city of Mora, I was searching for a location for a veterans memorial site. While visiting a memorial in nearby Braham, I ran into a Vietnam veteran who knew of my search for a site, and he said to me, quote, "The Legion builds it, I will donate the land." True to his word, the land was donated, and in 2 short years, we have a memorial built that honors all those that have died in battle and honors all that have served. The site also has a building that we have set up as an indoor memorial with local veterans memorabilia, uniforms from the last 4 wars, and other collections and stories of the heroes who served this state and country. Now the county wants to tax this site as a commercial property to the tune of almost $7,000, even though there is no commercial revenue generated on the property. Our post has no intentions of using the site for commercial enterprise. It's for meetings and as an educational tool for the community. I must also add that this is a county-wide collaboration between the Moore American Legion and the Ogilvy American Legion. The building itself is open to any organization that would like a quiet meeting away from the noise of the other establishments. Currently, we charge no fees for the use of the meeting room. All we ask is a donation of whatever they can afford, to include no donation. Those using the building as of today, the Legion, the local Boy Scouts, and the Vietnam Veterans of America. To help with the maintenance of this site, the Legion runs a golf tournament and one other small community fundraiser. Most of that money goes to support Legion Baseball, the Mora Boy Scouts, and the veterans in need. Thank you for your time, and I hope your support to get this bill passed, to help posts like ours survive, because without it, we won't. I will now answer any questions the committee may have.
Thank you, Mr. Scramsted. Are there any committee member questions? Is there any discussion on the bill? All right, any closing remarks, Representative Bennett?
Thank you, Chair Bliss, and I know time is of essence, so I'll just say thank you for your consideration. Appreciate it.
And Representative Bennett renews her motion that House File 195 is recommended to be re-referred to the Taxes Committee. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries and House File 195 is re-referred to Taxes.